Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is my classmate, a member of North Country's class of 1984, entertainer Tim Kavanagh.
1984. Good God.
Yeah, but you know, it's interesting. 1984, they just had the class reunion, and I typically don't do class reunions, and I made no exception this time. But 40 years, and I find that to be really interesting because I don't feel 40. Yeah. But then my kids are nearing 40, so go figure.
Good God, I know. I've got kids in their 30s and two grandchildren, and I don't feel like I graduated high school four decades ago. That's for sure.
You know, one thing we share in common, even though you wear it loud and proud, time has not been good on our hairlines.
I know.
You have chosen to shave, whereas I keep it around the edge. I think you said you were starting to look like Friar Tuck once.
That's it. When I first started my TV show, we were doing some test shots with it and everything. And I remember one of the producers afterwards said, have you ever thought about shaving your head completely bald? I think that it would like take away like 10 or 15 years from you. And I'm like, give me a razor. And so since then I've shaved my head ever since. The only time that I actually there was a couple of times I put hair back on, but once was when I was first diagnosed with cancer. The drug that they put me on was supposed to remove all your hair and everything. And so my FU to cancer, I don't know if I can say that, I just did, was I'm going to grow my hair back. And so I did. And Scott, my oncologist, Dr. Mark Greenblatt, and he was just like, I do not know how you're doing this. Like that you are against the odds here because no one should be able to grow their hair the way that you're growing your hair back right now. So that was the only.
But on the flip side, when Penny was battling her ill-fated attempt at beating cancer, she didn't lose too much of her hair. She lost because she had such thick hair.
She had a full head of hair, that girl.
Because because she had so much, she never really lost it all. So how many years have you been battling cancer?
We're 9 years in right now. Nine years in, yeah. So I was diagnosed in May of 2016. What's that?
That was a fluke too, that you had no idea, right?
I had a few symptoms back then that I remember, but I was doing a lot of travel for work, and my primary doctor had treated me for what they called traveler's crud, and he gave me some antibiotics and it cleared right up. But it was actually in that appointment that his nurse came in and said, "Hey, look at that. You're turning 50 in a couple months. You want to sign up for a colonoscopy?" And I'm like, whoo. So I did. And then, and that was back then, it was 50 was when you would have your first colonoscopy. So went in, had the what we were hoping was just going to be routine, and it turned out to be anything but routine, and was diagnosed right there on the table with stage 2 colorectal cancer.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're still around 9 years. 9 years later, I know it's been a hard journey. I've followed it. So tell me, you've lived quite a life. I know I've been on your TV show that you had out of Burlington, but you've then you were involved with the Simpsons movie, weren't you?
Yeah, that was a fun. That was a really fun experience. That was back in, oh my goodness gracious, I can't even recall the year of that one. I think it's been over. I know it's been over 10 years, well over 10 years. But anyways, 20th Century Fox was the production company that was putting that all together, and they were running a contest across the country for all the Springfields. In any state that has a town or city named Springfield, to be involved in a contest where they were looking for the hometown, the Simpsons spirit, I guess is what they called it. So the town of Vermont found out about this. They found out about it late. Got the information from 20th Century Fox, got a shipment from 20th Century Fox, and I mean like a huge crate full of props and supplies and stuff. And then I got a phone call from their Chamber of Commerce, and they told me what was going on, what they were hoping to do, and the fact that I had a TV show that I did funny skits, and that I actually look like Homer Simpson. Would I entertain the idea of coming and speaking to them? So I said, well, what's our timeline? And they said, from tomorrow to the point where it has to be at 20th Century Fox, we have 10 days. And I'm like, all right, I'll be there tomorrow. And lucky for me, and you'll recognize this name because she was actually on my TV show with you, was also fellow classmate Loran Turgeon, who at the time was the Vermont Film Commissioner. And so I called Loran up and I said, what are you doing tomorrow? And she goes, oh, Timmy, with you, that's always a loaded question. I don't know. What am I doing tomorrow? So I told her and she said, oh my God. She goes, yeah, pick me up. So we drove down, met with them, looked at all the information that 20th Century Fox had provided. I looked at Loran looked at me, and I said, we got to do this. And so then we just started working with the town and town officials. And we then, we walked the town, and then we drove the town with town officials. And I literally was kind of like conjuring this up in my head because we had to come down and shoot in the next couple of days. And so I said, I would need this area closed off and I would need extras for this area. I mean, there was one scene where we were requiring 300 extras, town extras, and we got them. And so we put it all together. I hired a production team out of the Barre Montpelier area. They came down with us. We shot it. We worked with local companies. They were fantastic. The townspeople were wonderful and accommodating. And 10 days later, we had it in the hands of 20th Century Fox. The voting platform was USA Today for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I think there was something like 20 some odd Springfields that were competing in it. Vermont won.
Yeah.
Go! Go! Moron. Go! I got it.
So it became home to Homer Simpson?
Yeah, that was the idea, was like, if you have the Simpson spirit, then you are the official hometown of the Simpsons. And of course, that caused major controversy with some of the bigger states. Of course, Oregon, which they always felt was Springfield, Oregon, which I always felt was the home The Simpsons because of, Matt Groening, the creator, has connections to Oregon. But the fact that Vermont won and at stake was that we got to host the world premiere of the Simpsons movie. So we had the full-on red carpet. Actually, it was a yellow carpet because Homer's the theme of the color of the theme of the movie was yellow. So it was a yellow carpet event. You had every press outlet there. We worked with, local companies like Magic Hat created a Duff beer for us. Ben and Jerry's created a flavor for us. We had members of the band Fish because they'd performed a couple of times on the show, on the Simpsons show. They performed. So it was just like this spectacular event, and I got to host it, which was really an honor and a great opportunity for me.
So after that project is done, didn't the theater undergo some massive damage during one of the storms right after?
Yeah, I believe it was a fire. Yeah, it caught fire, and from what I understand, was a devastating loss. But they rebuilt it. I've been back a couple of times to Springfield. It's always fun to walk through the town or drive through parts of it and remember where some of these scenes were shot. One was, we had the classic schoolroom where we had Bart having to write on the chalkboard about not acting out in class, and the baseball field and the downtown areas, and the movie theater itself was the kind of the pivotal point of the climax of the film itself. So.
And before we started filming, you and the producer, Todd Pronto, were talking that you were also in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, that was, boy, I'll tell you, that was what an experience, Scott, to be in Beetlejuice. I remember when the casting company reached out to me, and I was reading through what they were looking for, and I'm looking at it, and I saw that one of the locations was Vermont, and in particular it was East Corinth, Vermont. And I said, oh my God, this is Beetlejuice. I know this is Beetlejuice. And, it doesn't tell you what the name of the movie is. So I reached back out and I said, yes, I'm interested. Yes, I'm available those dates. And I mean, like, these dates were like, I don't know, 6 weeks out in advance type thing. So you never know with me what's going to happen in 6 weeks. And so I said yes. And the director, Tim Burton, has to look at all the profile shots and everything. And so they accepted me, which was unreal. And I remember talking to my friend and Hollywood actor Luis Guzman about it. And I said, I go, should I do this? Even, it's an extra role. There's not a speaking part, and I don't mind that. What I think is the opportunity is to work under the mind of Tim Burton and this amazing cast that's assembled. And he's like, and he's in the TV series Wednesdays, which is produced and directed by Tim Burton. And he's like, listen, Tim's a remarkable and amazing person. He goes, I think that I highly recommend you doing it. So fast forward to right before it, of course I get sick and I'm in the hospital. And I'm like, oh my God, like this cannot be happening. This cannot be happening. And again, with me, it's not always cancer related. A lot of times it's complications that are caused by the cancer, whether it's from all the surgeries and the scar tissues and things like that. So I'm in the hospital and I'm working with my team and I'm saying, listen, I've got to be out of here on Monday. Like I have to be out on Monday. And I kept saying that over and over and over to my team. And come Friday of that week, when the team is meeting with me that morning for the last time, because they're not there, the full team's not there over the weekends. I said, remember, I go, Monday, that's it. Like, I got to get out of here. And so my doctor says, he goes, all right, we're all very curious. Like, you've been very adamant about, like, no one wants to be in the hospital, but you've been very adamant about Monday. What's going on Monday? And I said, well, I need to get out of here on Monday because on Tuesday I have to drive to a location for a wardrobe fitting, and Wednesday I'm being shot in a scene for Beetlejuice 2. And they're like, why didn't you tell us that in the first place? We'll get you out of here. So,
hey, that doesn't surprise me because since you have Penny's cancer doctor, and Penny was given a far less, positive diagnosis. Penny knew she was terminal from the beginning, but Dr. Greenblatt was very accommodating because she knew that Penny wanted to live her life. She didn't want to, she knew she was dying, so she chose to live. And Dr. Greenblatt made all of that. He made it all possible. She'd said, hey, I want to go on this trip. And he'd say, all right, we'll make it happen. And so it doesn't surprise me that he and his team made it happen.
Yeah,
for
he's he's an amazing individual. When I was first diagnosed and we were introduced to him, of course, this is all brand new, and you remember going through it with Penny. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's being thrown at you. But I just remember my first thoughts on Dr. Greenblatt. It was like, this guy is a total geek. And if ever I wanted to work with a geek, now would be the time, because they're going to be so hyper focused on what my particular diagnosis is, and all the different options and results and testings and stuff like that, and that's still true to this day. But I applaud Penny, and I would say that I follow in her footsteps in the fact that you live your life, and with a diagnosis such as this, it is so much of it is about your attitude, and your attitude can literally direct your outcome without a doubt.
Yeah. No, she had, because of her extensive, the degree of her cancer, she was stage 4, despite all the testing she'd had done over the years. She was stage 4, and she had no chance for survival for any length of time. So she embraced life. And to tell you the truth is, I'm a far better person because of watching her fight her battle, but I'm also equally as impressed by you. So Tim, I've known you most of my life. So the secret is, most people think you only became an entertainer as an adult. Those of us who went to school with you knows that your entertaining experience went well back into elementary school, and probably your only viewers who didn't care for your acts were probably the teachers. I particularly remember you as a rather stout
husky.
individual.
We like to say husky.
With a with a head full of hair. I just distinctly, because you were what you would consider the class clown.
I specifically remember this, Scott. It's so funny that you recall it too. And you're right, we've known each other pretty near our entire lives. And but it was in 3rd grade. It wasn't until 3rd grade, and it was Mrs. Ledoux's class. And if you remember, Mrs. Ledoux was married to Mr. Ledoux, who happened to also be the
Oh,
principal
yeah.
of our school and sometimes alternate school bus driver. And it was in her class that all of a sudden I realized people were laughing at things I was saying or how I was reacting to different things. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Like that's really neat that people are laughing and think that I guess they think I'm funny. And it was literally that third grade class that made me realize, like, I love this. I love doing this. I like putting a smile on someone's face and making them laugh and giving them a memory of something. And like you just did, you just recalled 50 years, just like that. And so I just kind of kept going to the next and the next and the next level. And I don't know if you were in that third grade class with me or not, but I remember the day that Mrs. Ledoux, after having sent me to her husband's principal office numerous times, and he never appreciated my humor. At least he didn't show it. And I remember the day that Mrs. Ledoux thought she had a resolve for this. And she said, all right, Tim, here's what we're going to do. We're going to move your desk up next to mine at the front of the class. And so she moved my desk up. And so now I've got an audience in front of me. And I wasn't like facing her and the chalkboard. I was put on this side of her desk. So I'm facing her, and I've got all of my classmates off to my right. And I'm like, I have a built-in audience now. And so, I mean, it just it was like gold right there. And gave it a couple of tests and got quite a few laughs. And she did laugh a few times. But then it also won me another trip to Mr. Ledoux's office. And
you know what I heard about Mr. Ledoux? He came off, he looked and acted like a principal. And that was back when I don't think they could do corporal punishment, but he could, drag you down the hall. But the thing is they say he actually had a heart of gold and he absolutely loved kids and kids sports. I don't know if he could survive in today's educational climate.
Yeah, I know I can agree with that. I grew up, well, first I was on Northern Avenue in Newport, a little bit closer to where you grew up. But then we moved down on Bluff Road. So I wasn't all that far from Mr. and Mrs. Ledoux's house I think they were on Pine Street. And I had friends on that street, Annie Curtis was at the top of the street, and Julie Anderson and the Rushfords. And so that became a very popular street. And the Ledoux's were right in the middle of it all. And I remember seeing him, like in the summer months, as we're all playing and joking and having fun. And he'd be out there. He had a great smile. He had like this smile that could light up a room, but you rarely saw it. But we, as kids growing up in that neighborhood, got to see a little different side of him. And I also remember years later when I was a DJ, I did a couple of events up at the Elks Club up in Derby, and he was at it. And he and I had a really good opportunity to reminisce and have a couple of really good laughs.
Okay, we only have a couple more minutes for this segment, but so you got into high school. Did you put your humor to more creative uses, like in theater?
Yeah, I remember before high school. I remember it was 5th grade, and I remember they were doing the class play was going to be Dracula, and this is something like that. I think it was just the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades did for the rest of the school and the community. And Mr. Whitehouse was the director, also our English teacher, and
Mr.
Whitehill, not Whitehouse. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
You're thinking of the inauguration.
And so I remember like, oh, okay, so an audition, like I'd never done. This was really new to me, and so I remember auditioning for the lead role because like, what else would you audition for? The lead, and I'm like, I'd make a good Dracula. Dracula, isn't Dracula like full head of hair and husky? And so I got up and just read the lines and stuff like that. Didn't really think much about it. And then Michael Jeanette got up and auditioned. And Michael Jeanette was tall and dark hair and kind of sweat back and everything. And he put on a Transylvania accent. And I thought, shit. I'm like, I didn't even think of that. And he got the part. And I just remember from that moment on, I'm like, I will never not be prepared for an audition of some sort like that. And so fast forward into high school, I got involved, very much enjoyed working under the direction of Ken Young, H.K. Young, who was also a teacher, but was the drama director. And, I went to their musicals well before entering high school and just like admired the cast and the artistry of it all, and knew that I wanted to be up on that stage. And so the 4 years of high school, I was in the musicals and the talent shows.
Okay, I got one question. I'm going to see how good your memory is. It sticks out in my mind from elementary school. Steve Shepard, who is no longer with us because he was killed, and he was in the Air Force, I believe, and was killed in a plane accident. Do you remember his father worked for Space Research Corp? Do you remember what he came as for one Halloween?
What Steve Shepard came as for one Halloween?
You're right.
Oh boy.
R2D2?
Was it R2D2?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And it was like very, very, very detailed, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. And there's a flashback.
Oh my God.
Because his father worked for Space Research, and I guess he and his father, they made it, and it was like a robot. And there we go. Our memories.
That. Holy cow! Wow, that's a crazy flashback right there.
All right. Well, we've got to wrap up this segment of the show, and we will go on to the next chapter of your life in the upcoming segment.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thank you for coming on. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.